Hey everyone. Alright, so I got an update for today. I made a lot of progress in the Dark Base, and I have some thoughts on art, but I'm not quite sure just yet how I want to go about adding art to the game. But I have a pretty interesting prospect that I looked up and found this. Now this is I like this palette. This is a voxel tool that allows you to build characters and stuff. Also allows you to do like geometry. I find this appealing on many levels, right? Like, oh yeah. There's definitely a lot to be said about this, but there's a lot of things that I gotta kind of look into if I want to go this route actually. So like, if I take this and how do I? Yeah, you hold down Shift and you can draw more. One thing about voxel art is fun as fuck, and it has an exporter, which is actually pretty robust. All right, I'm gonna go on that. I'm gonna talk for a little bit about Project Stray first. I made some changes here. There's a bug with the engine. I gotta talk to. I gotta. I have to get in contact with Epic. I haven't done it yet. I'm probably gonna go to maybe on Discord. I'll have to find like some kind of way to talk to the Epic devs or somebody, or get in touch with somebody. I mean, this is a pretty considerable project. I mean, any way you slice it, whether you like it or not, like this is still a pretty considerable project. So maybe it's probably time for me to like be in contact with them because there's a bug that pops up every once in a while that I think needs to be fixed or addressed, and that is every once in a while I'll have a progress tag and it'll just be on the entity. It'll just disappear. It'll be a map that I haven't touched in a couple of days or something like that. Like I haven't done very much to this area, and all of a sudden when I'm playing, I do a build of the game, and I decide to play up to the first part, and I can just skip the first fight because the door opens because there's no progress tag on it. It seems to happen a lot. In fact, it's probably going to happen right now. Um, I don't know what it is. It just disappears. That's a kind of annoying bug. It's pretty annoying. I haven't noticed that same phenomenon with anything else though, like other objects. It's just strings. Yeah, all right. So it's and whatever causes it, I would love to know what causes it because I could prevent it in the future. But so anyway, I got more of this area over here is a lot more complete and stuff like that. But now I'm actually starting to think a little bit more about the art and the sound. Now the sound isn't really going to be that much of a challenge, mainly because outside of hooking it up, mainly because there's a lot of really great sound packs already out there that are probably all I really need. I mean, the only thing is that there might be stuff like I need sounds for like certain types of monsters or something like that, and that'll end up taking a bit of effort. Sound can be fairly straightforward given the marketplace is so robust when it comes to this topic. The only thing is that I have to be careful how I spend my money at this point in time, and it'll cost me maybe upwards of maybe $150 to to do that. But so that side of things is not really that concerning. But I do have to start thinking about the art side of things as well. And now I've already messed around with like materials and stuff like that, and a stylized art, um, a stylized system like textures and stuff like that. And I mean, I could obviously improve on how this is like applied to the surface. I can like do different types of mapping and stuff like that. But these kinds of textures are fairly easy to make, and I can place them pretty much everywhere, and they accept light maps, and they so the world itself, like I'll have to create new meshes because these flat sheets don't accept light maps, but I can easily replace the flat sheet with something that is roughly equivalent that won't cause visual errors and stuff like that. And I think it'll be pretty easy to kind of work with this uh, look by simply replacing these with something that's of equivalent size and surface size and stuff like that. Like, so there are like textures. Let's see, if I look at this while it's lit, it's probably gonna look pretty strange. Yeah, they'll have to be a little bit more attention to lighting, to making sure that lighting is evened out and stuff like that. But that on that note, there's actually a pretty decent amount of hope as far as the level geometry and stuff like that. Now, that takes me to the guns, right? Now um, we have this. Now I can pretty easily make guns within this. So there's actually a few different prospects when it comes to this. Um, this is called MagicaVoxel, and MagicaVoxel allows you to do a pretty decent amount of stuff very easily. It's um, you could do stuff that would be a total horrendous nightmare. This thing's probably 100,000 polys, which so the challenges when it comes to using MagicaVoxel for anything other than um, characters or dynamic objects is that the way it's currently set up, if you look at like how, oh, oops, I just carved a hole right there. If you look at how like this surface right here is flat, but it's a different color, so that's a flat surface, but there's different pixels here. Currently, the way I export, this cuts the geometry, and this voxel stuff tends to create pretty high poly geometry, which is something that I just have to keep that in mind while I'm working with it, right? But my plan to have lots and lots of enemies at once, and believe me, I'm definitely going in the route of having big battles with lots and lots of enemies. Um, even if it's just a flat sprite, and when you export this stuff, it it's a lot of polygons, each one of these different colors, but it does combine. It does a good job of combining like this. And then there's one other problem. If I wanted to make static level geometry, like say if I wanted to actually just go ahead and make like all the walls, floors, and ceilings, and crates, and all of the different things in the world, um, using this, which would actually be pretty cool. It doesn't export with any kind of UV, so I have to go into Blender and do it that way. But if I was able to do pretty much all of the art in this, I think that would actually be really cool. There's just one problem, and that is I'm not really sure if I want the enemies to be voxels. So, I mean, doing sprites for enemies seems maybe easier. Well, anyway, that's pretty much gets you're pretty much up to speed now with like the current thought process, the process that's going on right now, and um, man, like I have like I'm just trying to imagine making like monsters in voxel in my voxel magica. You know what I'd end up doing is I'd make like the enemy's head, and the head would be able to like turn independently, and that would all just be part of like the character's visual state, like where the enemy is actually looking. It would be a lot like the Minecraft characters, where like they're not like this. That's too simplistic, but um, where the legs would actually be attached as components, and I'd be able to like do like the legs separately and the hands separately, and their animations would actually just be like, well, that's the thing. Like the animations would end up being like fucking, um, like the hand would just like move or something, and like that was the attack. Um, I actually kind of want like I actually kind of want to have enemies that are um like this right here, intrude. All right, I'm gonna go game intrude images. Here we go. So this game right here, when I saw it, I was like, um, I could totally do this sort of art style, right? It's like very simple, and it would allow me to do, all of the different types of weapons and everything like that pretty easily. I'm thinking that I would rather have enemies that are kind of like this, but use the MagicaVoxel thing for making the guns and stuff. So you'd have the gun being like a 3D object sitting at the bottom of the screen, right? And like it would just sort of do its thing. It would sit there and it would fire. I'd play like a muzzle flash or something like that, and then it would kick back and then go forward again. And okay, that seems pretty straightforward. And then maybe if there's a point in time where you see the guns like laying on the side or something, in a room, you'd have like a rack with guns or something, at a shop where you're buying and selling shit. For example, you'd see the voxel versions of the guns. Maybe like some objects could be voxels, and then the enemies and characters would be sprites. That's my thinking. My only problem with that is like Intrude is kind of a simple game, um, where you can kind of get away with the fact that the enemies are just facing you, right? But if this was something that was a little bit more akin to like Doom or something, then I would have to also account for like enemies not just facing you and enemies like turning and shooting at you and stuff like that. The neat thing about this though is that if I do implement it this way first, it's not impossible that I'd be able to like patch the enemies being able to face different directions visually, um, fairly early on. Like I mean at a later state, maybe I'd have somebody have a little bit enough attention on the project that I'd be able to actually have like somebody do the art for that, right? So that's pretty much that. Um, but this sort of really really simple like textures look might not be totally achievable in the kinds of environments that I'm building, because this is just Wolfenstein. This is just flat walls and stuff like that. But I might be able to pull something off that's very similar to this, but as like a step up. basically. I even like the gun sprite, honestly. The gun sprites in Intrude are pretty cool. Like, look at that shotgun. You know, it's a possibility that I could just do everything as sprites, even the guns. Huh. I don't know. So I am currently thinking about the art side of things right now, and it would be pretty cool to go like as far as like make the whole game look like a fucking um voxel thing. Like I don't know what the steps are gonna be. It'll take me a little bit to figure out like how to make sure if a mesh that I make um is if a mesh that I make will have light maps. So like I can make stuff in this and then just like plop it into the world as like art assets, which I think honestly that would be fucking awesome. Um, I just have to be careful on how I go about shading things and stuff because of the poly counts. And there would be certain things that I don't want to do, like you can't really do angled surfaces if you're working with voxels. You got to do, you know, because every time there's an angled surface, it causes like a stair step, and that creates lots and lots of polygons. So like if I wanted to have like a flat wall with like an indent where it's going in like this and going out like that, that becomes more complicated because I I simply have to be careful about poly counts. Um, I don't know. So there's a few different possibilities. Maybe just the guns should be done as voxels, and maybe everything else should be done in a more traditional fashion, just using regular meshes and low resolution textures. Well, anyway, all right, I'm up to 17 minutes at this point, but that's pretty much what I'm thinking about at the moment, and I'm actually thinking that maybe I should be kind of pushing to start getting the visuals in uh, a little bit sooner rather than later because I mean I can get everything up to this first boss fight, which is all the way over here and everything like that, but I'm starting to feel a little bit like I'm getting ahead of myself by adding all of that in. I know I can do the boss fights because the scripting in this is just so good. The question is like, will I get enough attention for the project? Like that's more important, and that's another thing I want to just do a quick shout out, and then I'm gonna end this. Um, Everybody who's like been subscribing to me on Steemit, like you guys are awesome. Um, I'm up to I'm up to 165 followers now, and that's awesome. And I think that's 165 followers, or of people who are actually like checking out my stuff. Um, that to me, that's fucking awesome, and I hope you guys are entertained and uh, finding this at least interesting and stuff like that. And if you are following me, do learn about Steemit. Just not even just for me, like for yourself. You might want to learn about it, um, because the sooner you learn about cryptocurrency and stuff like that, the better. But anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for that, and I'm gonna keep rolling out the content. But if you have any buddies who are looking for someone who could do like level design contract work or something like that, I'm definitely up for that right now. I'm kind of yeah, like I'm in the market right now. Look, I'm just kind of putting my feelers out for like what's out there. So keep that in mind as well. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna end this now, and then I'll do some a later update. Um, Maybe even talk about Steemit in another post. All right, and done.